Cooking on the Homefront. How American families used the rations they were given and the items they could grow or raise to cook 3 meals a day during World War II. Food will win the war. Rationing, victory gardens, patriotism. Rationing. Rationing in the United States started just weeks after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. On January 30th, 1942, the Emergency Price Control Act was passed, which allowed the Office of Administration, the OPA, to set prices and rations on food that would soon be needed overseas for those on the front lines. War Ration Book 1 and Sugar. War Ration Book 1 was first issued in May of 1942 and was needed to buy sugar. Not only was sugar the first thing to be rationed, it was also the last thing to stop being rationed. Every person got half a pound of sugar per week. While this does not seem very severe, the average American today eats about 3 pounds per week. As the war went on, the rations became even more strict. In November of 1942, coffee was rationed. 5 months later, in March of 1943, meat, cheese, fats, canned fish, canned milk, and processed food were also rationed. Americans were encouraged to stop eating meat, dairy products, and canned foods because these items could be easily shipped to the troops in Europe and the Pacific Theater. The OPA issued 3 more ration books throughout the entirety of the war. Each person, from newborns to the elderly and everyone in between, had 64 red stamps and 48 blue stamps every week that they could use to buy what they needed that was rationed. It should be noted that not everything was rationed. Things like fresh fruits and vegetables were not rationed, so the buyer did not use their stamps to buy them. If they did not use their whole stamp, they could get back OPA point coins, the size of the dime, that they could use later. For gasoline, they had coupons that, depending on your job, gave a certain number of gallons each week. In the beginning, you could not get change for your stamp if you did not use the whole amount that the stamp was worth. Shoppers were strongly encouraged in signs and posters, like the one on the right, to use higher value stamps when they could, so that when they needed a small item, they could use stamps of smaller value. This helped ration books last longer. Stamps were not a form of money, but they were required when someone wanted to purchase a rationed item. 1 week's ration per person: half a pound of sugar, 1/5 a pound of coffee, which you would get every 5 weeks, or you'd get a pound of coffee every 5 weeks, and approximately 1 pound of meat. Victory gardens. Americans were strongly encouraged to grow their own victory gardens. This not only helped families supplement the lack of meat and dairy they were getting, but also helped with the war effort. Around 40% of vegetables grown during World War II were grown in victory gardens. Patriotism. Americans during World War II did not just buy ration books and plant victory gardens because they wanted to. They did it because they wanted to be patriotic. Along with planting and rationing, they bought war bonds, worked in factories and other jobs to help with the war effort, and recycle. So here I'm going to show you like some of the things that were rationed and some of the produce that they could either grow or gather, and then the war ration book and kind of how it worked. So here I have the War Ration Book 1, and on the front it's like the terms and stuff that like punishments for misusing them, or what to do if the person left the country or died, or if it was lost. Then on the inside we have the name of the person, of the owner of the book, their address, and then that's over here. And then up here it's like a description that the shopkeepers could use to make sure this person wasn't using this illegally, using someone else's book. And then down here are the stamps, and then on the back is kind of like their, like an agreement that you had to take care of your book and stuff like that. So some of the things that were rationed were, well, the first thing that was rationed was sugar. So like that. And everyone only got 1 pound of sugar per week. Or not 1 pound, a half pound. The next thing that was rationed was coffee. So everyone could get 1 pound of coffee every 5 weeks. The next things that were rationed were meat, canned meat, and broth. We had canned vegetables, so like beans and corn, and also they milk, canned milk was rationed, because all these things could be sent over to the soldiers in Europe or in the Pacific. And then, but because they didn't get this much food, they would also have to save. Butter was also another one. So, like, they would, to conserve butter, they would take the grease from meat that they cooked. Every person had 64 red stamps, and those red stamps you could use to buy meat. So everyone, so like this was something that was bought quite often because there's so much you can do with it. Other things were like hamburger, because you can do a lot with that. Cheese was also rationed, so I guess you could make your own if you wanted. And then people also grew vegetable gardens. So we have here snap peas, green beans, tomatoes, peppers, cucumber, carrots, zucchini, lettuce. They could also gather stuff from the surrounding area, so like blackberries or raspberries or strawberries. One other thing that was rationed that is not as well known is dog food, because dog food is made from human food, or made from the same food humans eat. So, yeah. Other things that were rationed were things like maple syrup, so sweeteners. So, if they didn't have maple syrup, they could use corn syrup. So, for breakfast, I have decided to make eggless pancakes. So, let's see how this goes. So, I've got 5 tablespoons of flour, and then a couple, I think 3 pinches of sugar and 1 pinch of salt. And then I'm going to add as much milk as I need to make it the right consistency. So this is a United Kingdom recipe, so I could add more sugar because I had more sugar available than they did. And I could use milk because we also had more milk in the United States than they did in the United Kingdom. I think I will cook these and then show you the finished product. Okay, so I just finished my pancakes. This is what they look like. I just realized that the ingredients are a lot more like glue. So if anyone needs glue after Friday, let me know. To make them a little sweeter, I have some blackberries. So I'll put a couple on one. And then I have corn syrup, which they would use instead of syrup. So I'm gonna try one. Okay. They actually don't taste that bad, but the texture is not that of a pancake. Yeah. So for lunch, I have decided to make a BLT. So I have this bread, which I've already toasted, and I'm guessing it's pretty similar to the bread that they would use back then because it was very grainy and yeah. And I've heated up some bacon. The reason bacon was so popular back then was because the taste, because the taste is so strong, a little goes a long way. So next I have to cut my tomato. These they could grow, the Homefront Americans could grow in their victory gardens. So, and these they could use a lot of because one tomato plant produces quite a lot of tomatoes. So, if you didn't have a victory garden, you could buy these from the store and they would not be rationed because they couldn't send fruit and vegetables over because they would easily rot on the way. So next I have my lettuce. They could also grow these. And one trick that they could use to preserve more is when you're done with this, you can stick the bottom, the part you can't really eat, into some dirt and it'll grow. That's pretty good. So for dinner, I have decided to have chicken soup, and brothy soups were like really popular back then because you could use the chicken for a meal, and then you would, I think, stick the carcass in a pot or whatever, and then you'd try and get all the broth you can out of it. Then you could use it for soups or sauces or whatever else. This one has some celery and carrots. They could use these because they could grow these. So, yeah. So, I'm not probably going to tell you how it tastes because you probably all know pretty much how it tastes. So, to finish up my World War II cooking, I have decided to make a dessert. That the recipe originally came out during World War I, but the same kind of rationing was going on. So this is what I made. It's called an apple brown Betty, and basically it's just apples, breadcrumbs, some sort of fat, and then cinnamon and corn syrup, and yeah. So I'm gonna try it now. So it's very similar to apple pie. It's actually really good, and one thing I've learned today is you don't need a lot of sugar to make things good. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and that you learned something. This project has given me a whole new appreciation for when we live. Thanks!